Every year, America pours $800 billion into defense, enough money to raise mountains of steel, fill the skies with warplanes, and crowd the oceans with warships. But hidden inside that power is a strange paradox. The most terrifying weapon has never fired a single shot, and the most expensive machine never left the factory floor. Watch until the end, because the one that should disturb you most is the project that burned $3 billion for absolutely nothing. The silent threat. It has never been fired in combat, yet every military commander on Earth fears it. The Trident II is not a weapon designed for use, it is a weapon designed to make use unthinkable. A submarine-launched ballistic missile co-owned by the United States and British Navy that sits silently beneath the ocean's surface, waiting for a command that humanity hopes never comes. The United States and UK have spent a combined $53 billion on this system to date, not because they plan to use it, but because its existence alone rewrites the rules of global power. The numbers behind Trident II are not military statistics, they are psychological instruments. The missile travels at 13,000 miles per hour, covering 4,600 miles in less time than most people take to finish a meal, launched from submarines operating silently below the surface, through an explosive charge that ejects 80 tons of steel into the sky before the enemy radar even registers movement. Each missile carries multiple nuclear warheads so potent that a single launch would make history's worst nuclear events look like rehearsals, making Trident II not just a weapon but a civilization-ending instrument disguised as a deterrent. What makes Trident II uniquely terrifying is its operational invisibility. Los Angeles-class and Ohio-class submarines carrying these missiles can remain undetected for months, moving silently through international waters with no announcement, no warning, and no trackable signature. The enemy never knows where it is, only that it exists somewhere beneath the water, aimed, armed, and ready within minutes. Each Ohio-class submarine carries up to 24 Trident II missiles simultaneously, meaning a single vessel operating in silence already possesses enough destructive capacity to reshape entire regions of the world without surfacing once, a fact that transforms the ocean itself from a geographic boundary into an active strategic instrument. The financial architecture supporting Trident II extends far beyond the missile itself, encompassing early warning satellite networks, hardened command bunkers, encrypted global communication systems, and continuous submarine patrol operations that collectively absorb hundreds of billions of dollars across decades of deployment, all maintained to guarantee that even a surprise first strike against American soil could not prevent a retaliatory launch already positioned silently beneath every major ocean simultaneously, a mathematical certainty of mutual destruction so absolute that no rational state actor has tested it in over 50 years. What separates Trident II from every other weapon system on this list is not what it costs, but what it purchases. Not destruction, but permanent psychological leverage over every nation on Earth that knows it exists, a return on investment that no conventional military budget has ever replicated at any price. So here is the real question nobody asks. If the world's most dangerous weapon has never been fired and costs $53 billion, what does that tell you about the weapons that have actually been used, and how much those cost? The sky's apex predator. Some fighter jets are built to fly. Like a giant eagle fully armed, the F-35 Lightning II was built to make every other fighter jet irrelevant. At $1,130 million per unit, this is not just the most expensive fighter jet ever manufactured. It is the most technologically compressed piece of aerial warfare ever conceived. Designed by Lockheed Martin after 15 years of development and released in 2015 with a predicted operational lifespan of 55 years, meaning every dollar spent today compounds its strategic value across generations of military dominance. What separates the F-35 from every aircraft before it is not speed alone, though clocking 1,200 miles per hour already places it beyond most interception capabilities. The real revolution is internal weapon storage, a design choice that eliminated external pylons that create drag on conventional fighter jets, making the F-35 simultaneously lighter, faster, and harder to detect on radar, with a combat radius of 833 kilometers and internal bomb payloads weighing up to 450 kilograms each, all concealed until the moment of deployment with no visual warning before impact. But the weapons are only the surface. Beneath the fuselage sits the AN/APG-81A ESA radar system, valued at approximately $4 million per unit. capable of tracking multiple targets simultaneously across hundreds of miles while jamming enemy radar frequencies at the same time, functioning less like a sensor and more like an electronic weapon in its own right. The Pratt & Whitney F-135 engine powering each F-35 costs approximately $14 million alone, generating 43,000 pounds of thrust through a single engine design that no previous single-engine fighter has matched at this performance level. The stealth coating applied across the airframe costs $1 million per aircraft to maintain annually, absorbing radar waves rather than reflecting them, making the F-35 effectively invisible to conventional detection systems at combat distances. Perhaps most remarkably, the helmet-mounted display system worn by every F-35 pilot costs $400,000 per helmet, projecting real-time flight data, targeting information, and sensor feeds directly onto the visor, allowing pilots to see through the aircraft itself, using external cameras embedded around the fuselage, a capability no previous fighter aircraft has ever offered at any price. The total F-35 program, spanning development, procurement, and projected lifetime operations across all three variants, is estimated to exceed $1.7 trillion, making it not just the most expensive fighter jet ever built, but the most expensive defense program in the entire history of human warfare, a figure so large it exceeds the annual GDP of most nations currently operating the aircraft. The F-35 also introduced a data-sharing architecture that fundamentally transformed Allied air operations. Every aircraft transmits sensor data in real time to every other F-35 within the operational theater, creating a shared targeting picture that allows individual pilots to act on intelligence gathered by aircraft they cannot see, effectively turning a dispersed formation into a single distributed intelligence network, a capability that NATO planners consider more strategically valuable than the aircraft's individual weapon systems, because it multiplies the effective awareness of every pilot, regardless of what their own sensors can directly detect. So here is what I want you to answer honestly in the comments. If your country spent $1,130 million on a single aircraft, would you feel safer, or would you question whether that money could have protected more lives spent differently? The outsider, like a chess grandmaster hiding the most decisive move until the board is perfectly set, France quietly built the most expensive, functional battle tank in the world, while America was busy spending billions on machines that never left the factory floor. The AMX 5.6 Leclerc, manufactured by Nexter Systems at $9.3 million per unit, is not just a tank, it is a statement that engineering precision can outvalue brute force, a third-generation battle tank that the French, Jordanian, and United Arab Emirates armies trusted enough to deploy in real operational environments, where failure is not a budget line item, but a body count. Production began in 1991, with the first units delivered to the French army by 1992, and since then, approximately 800 Leclercs have been delivered across 3 nations, with the French army operating 406 units, the UAE possessing 388 units, making the Leclerc one of the most internationally distributed premium battle tanks in modern military history. The UAE's investment alone represents approximately $3.6 billion in tank procurement, a figure that rivals the entire defense budgets of multiple nations simultaneously. What justifies that price begins with the components hidden beneath the armor. The Sagem Savin 15 fire control system, valued at approximately $2 million per tank, integrates thermal imaging, laser rangefinding, and ballistic computation into a targeting package that allows accurate fire while the tank is moving at full speed across varied terrain, transforming the Leclerc from a static artillery piece into a mobile precision instrument that no manually operated fire control system can match at equivalent speed. The automated loading mechanism, costing approximately $800,000 per unit, eliminates the need for a human loader entirely, reducing crew requirements from 4 to 3, while simultaneously increasing firing rate to 40 rounds per engagement cycle, a mechanical efficiency that competitors building manually loaded tanks cannot replicate without fundamental redesign of their entire platform architecture. Supporting the main 120mm smoothbore gun is the titanium steel composite armor package, valued at approximately $1.2 million per unit, making the Leclerc dramatically lighter than steel-armored competitors without sacrificing protection, allowing mobility speeds that heavier armored vehicles cannot match across modern battlefield environments, where agility determines survival more reliably than thickness alone. a 12.7mm coaxial M2 HP machine gun, and a 7.62mm machine gun share over 4,000 rounds between them, creating overlapping fields of fire that cover both armored and infantry threats within a single platform. The Leclerc also incorporates a battlefield management system that allows real-time coordination between tanks in formation, a digital integration capability that turns individual units into networked assets, sharing targeting data, positional awareness, and threat classification simultaneously, a level of technological cohesion that explains why the UAE and Jordan chose this platform over alternatives that cost less but offered significantly less in return. The Leclerc's survivability systems also include an automatic fire suppression mechanism and a nuclear, biological, and chemical protection package rated for extreme contamination environments, components that add approximately $300,000 per unit in specialized sealing and filtration infrastructure, but allow the crew to remain operational in conditions that would force unprotected vehicles to withdraw within minutes, a capability that French military planners built into every unit, after studying operational scenarios where contaminated battlefield environments were considered likely rather than theoretical. Here is what makes this remarkable. The only non-American weapon in this entire list is also the only tank that actually works as promised. So what does that tell you about what happens when the most expensive American military vehicle never fires a single round? The billion-dollar ghost. If the Leclerc is the grandmaster making precisely calculated moves, the expeditionary fighting vehicle is the player who overturned the entire board, spent $3 billion setting up the pieces, and never played a single game. The EFV, manufactured by General Dynamics for the US Marine Corps, was conceived as the most ambitious amphibious assault vehicle ever designed, a machine capable of launching from naval vessels at sea, crossing open water at combat speed, and transitioning seamlessly onto land as a fully operational battle tank without stopping, without repositioning, without giving enemy forces a moment to respond. The vision was genuinely revolutionary. Previous amphibious vehicles moved through water at approximately 8 miles per hour, slow enough that enemy forces on shore had time to reposition, reinforce, and prepare defensive lines before Marine squads even reached the beach. The EFV was engineered to travel at 28 miles per hour through open ocean, more than 3 times faster than any comparable system, compressing the window of vulnerability from hours into minutes, and fundamentally rewriting the tactical logic of amphibious assault operations for the 21st century. General Dynamics invested in advanced hydrodynamic hull design, retractable track systems valued at approximately $500,000 per vehicle, and a twin turbocharged MTU engine generating 2,600 horsepower to achieve that ocean speed, alongside a 30mm Mk-44 Bushmaster II cannon and advanced electronics package, bringing the total projected unit cost to approximately $12.9 million per vehicle, with the Marine Corps planning to procure 573 units, representing a total program value exceeding $7.4 billion at full production scale. None of it happened. By 2010, the Marine Corps had consumed $3 billion in development costs alone, producing vehicles that repeatedly failed reliability testing, overheated engines, and demonstrated mechanical breakdowns that no battlefield could tolerate. On the 6th of January 2011, the program was cancelled entirely, making the EFV the most expensive military vehicle in American history that never fired a single round in operational service. What makes this failure particularly revealing is not the money lost, but the process that allowed it to continue for years after problems became visible, with internal reports flagging mechanical failures as early as 2000. Yet procurement decisions continued absorbing taxpayer capital for another decade, without producing a single deployable unit, a pattern of institutional inertia that raises questions about accountability structures inside defense spending that no public inquiry has ever fully answered. The cancellation also triggered costs that rarely appear in standard program accounting. General Dynamics retained a portion of development funding under existing contractual structures, and the Marine Corps subsequently directed additional hundreds of millions of dollars toward interim amphibious solutions to address the operational capability gap the EFV was intended to close, meaning the actual financial consequence of the program extends well beyond the $3 billion figure most analyses cite, with total expenditure including follow-on replacement spending potentially approaching double that amount before alternative platforms reach deployable readiness. So here is the question that should genuinely unsettle you. If $3 billion of taxpayer money disappeared into a vehicle that never worked, what else has been quietly cancelled that nobody told you about? The floating nation. Everything before this was a weapon. What comes next is a sovereign nation that moves. The CVN-78 Gerald R. Ford-class aircraft carrier, built by Huntington Ingalls Industries at $9.8 billion per unit, is not a ship in any conventional sense of that word. It is a floating military civilization capable of projecting more aerial firepower than the entire air forces of most countries on Earth, deployed thousands of miles from any coastline without requiring permission, without requiring infrastructure, and without requiring anyone's approval. To understand the scale, consider that $9.8 billion is nearly 3 times the entire GDP of Liberia, a sovereign nation of 5 million people, meaning a single ship costs more than an entire country produces in 3 years of economic activity. The U.S. Navy currently operates $34 billion worth of these carriers in active deployment, a fleet investment that exceeds the total defense budgets of Australia, Canada, and Spain combined, yet represents only a fraction of total American naval spending. The physical specifications collapse normal frames of reference. The CVN-78 spans over 4.5 acres of flight deck, weighing hundreds of thousands of tons and housing up to 75 aircraft simultaneously across its hangars and deck, supported by an electromagnetic launch system, EMLS, valued at approximately $1 billion per carrier that replaced the steam catapults used on previous carriers, reducing mechanical stress on aircraft and increasing sortie rates dramatically. The AN/SPY-3 dual-band radar system aboard each carrier costs approximately $750 million, providing simultaneous air and surface tracking across hundreds of miles in all weather conditions, while Sea Sparrow missile defense batteries valued at $150 million per installation protect the carrier against submarine and aerial threats that attempt to penetrate its defensive perimeter. Powering all of this are 2 A-1B nuclear reactors generating 600 megawatts of electricity, enough to power a mid-sized American city, giving the CVN-78 virtually unlimited range without refueling, allowing deployments that last months rather than weeks, and projecting continuous presence across multiple theaters simultaneously without logistical interruption. The carrier also supports a permanent crew of approximately 5,000 personnel, including pilots, engineers, medical staff, and intelligence officers, making it not just a weapons platform but a self-sustaining operational community capable of functioning independently for extended periods, carrying its own fuel reserves, food supply chains, medical facilities, and communications infrastructure that would qualify as significant national assets if they existed on land rather than at sea. The CVN-78 also introduced the Advanced Arresting Gear (AAG) system valued at approximately $200 million per carrier, replacing hydraulic arrestment technology with an electromagnetic system designed to reduce structural stress on aircraft frames during recovery operations, extending the operational lifespan of carrier-based aircraft by reducing cumulative damage inflicted over thousands of landing cycles and projecting long-term maintenance savings that partially offset the installation cost across the carrier's projected 50-year service life. A financial calculation that transforms what looks like additional expenditure into a long-term asset preservation strategy measured across half a century of continuous deployment. A question that has lingered for decades without a satisfying answer. If a single ship costs $9.8 billion and a fleet costs $34 billion, at what point does military spending stop being defense and start being something else entirely? If you think you know the answer, drop it in the comments below, because so far not a single response has come close to settling it. The 5 weapons in this video reveal something far more important than military capability. They reveal how the world's most powerful nation thinks about money, control, and permanence. Thank you for watching until the end, because understanding how power is purchased, maintained, and sometimes wasted matters more than most people realize. Deterrence costs more than war. The most expensive weapons are never meant to be used. Their value lies entirely in the fear they generate, and that fear costs $53 billion to maintain. Spending without accountability destroys value. $3 billion can vanish into a program that produces nothing, and the system continues without consequence, which reveals more about power than any weapon ever could. Scale is its own form of control. When a single asset costs more than a nation's GDP, ownership alone becomes a geopolitical statement that no negotiation table can ignore. If this breakdown changed how you see military power and money, like this video and subscribe to Wealth Dominion, because your support keeps these analyses going. The next video pulls back the curtain on a different kind of power, not military but financial, and the figures behind it have never appeared on any defense budget in history. Stay close.